without a purpose, it's difficult to imagine to be successful. And it not only tells us what we want to do, and importantly, it also tells us what we should not be doing. And I feel that a purpose is what unites employees. Deutsche Bank has employees all over the world, different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. But they all need to have the same purpose, otherwise we are not one organization.
The two most important days in life are the day you're born and the day you discover the reason why. These words from Mark Twain were probably not intended to be applied to large corporations, but they are quite relevant to them too. Because organizations that define the fundamental and enduring reason why they exist, their purpose, and then use that purpose to inspire their long-term vision, strategy, culture, grow faster than their competitors. Plus, they have more loyal customers and more engaged employees. Doing this well can be a true landmark in an organization's history. With that in mind, it is not surprising that so many organizations are choosing to focus on their purpose. And that includes us here at Deutsche Bank, where we have recently been on our own journey to become a purpose-led organization. Of course, getting this right is much easier said than done, but clearly an aspiration worth striving towards. In today's special episode of This is Deutsche Bank, we want to discuss why a purpose can be so powerful, how you go about defining it, and how you truly bring it to life. I'm Ben Alka, Global Head of Corporate Affairs and Strategy, and for this conversation, I'm delighted to be joined by the Chairman of our Supervisory Board, Alex Wynaendts. Hi Alex, thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I spoke about the fact that Deutsche Bank is on a journey to become purpose-led, and I know that since being elected as a Chairman of the Supervisory Board 3 years ago, you've been very focused on that, and you've articulated from the start that you want Deutsche Bank to articulate its purpose and put it at the center of what it does. Why do you think is that so important for an organization like ours?
Well, Ben, I have learned in my previous life, when I was CEO of Aegon Insurance Company, the importance of purpose. It took me some time to understand it, but once I understood it, I also understood that without a purpose, it's difficult to imagine to be successful. Let me give you one quote that I'm sure has inspired many people, but has also inspired us. It's a quote around the visit of the President of the United States when he went to Cape Canaveral, JFK. And he saw a janitor and he said to the janitor, "What are you doing here?" And he answered, "I'm helping putting a man on the moon." And I think this tells the story very clearly what a purpose is, because it is important for an organization like Deutsche Bank, for any organization, that every single employee in the organization understands what he's doing and why he's doing it. And we do different things. And we need to make sure that we all understand in the same way what we want to do. And I think the purpose that Deutsche Bank has put in place now is a very good purpose, because it does focus on putting the customer central to everything we do. And let's face it, that is a change compared to the past. This organization is now becoming a truly customer-centric organization. It's not talking about it only, it's not only saying the right things, but it's also acting. And we need to make sure that we continue on this journey. And I feel that the purpose is what unites employees. Deutsche Bank has employees all over the world, different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. But they all need to have the same purpose, otherwise we are not one organization. We need to be one organization that shares the same purpose wherever we are, and also whatever we do.
You describe what that purpose does with an organization like Deutsche Bank. And of course, it's important that it's not just words on a page, but something that really guides behaviors of our employees and their collective kind of achievements. So that is a journey to get there, from the definition of a purpose towards really leading the organization with that purpose. Can you describe a little bit what the ingredients are to get that process right?
Well, I think one of the most important things is that this has to be truly done by the organization. And I really commend how you and the Vorstand and the leadership of Christian have picked this up and have taken ownership. There's nothing worse than to go outside and ask a consultant, "Can you help me with our purpose?" That would be a disaster. It has to be lived by your organization. You took the time to define what your purpose is. You made sure that every single member of the Vorstand was part of this, felt comfortable with it. Because if you don't have that as a starting point, there's no way, as you can understand, that you will get that purpose being communicated to the rest of the organization. What I also feel very important with the purpose is that it tells us also what we want to do. And it not only tells us what we want to do, and importantly, it also tells us what we should not be doing. A purpose is very helpful. You'll find that very often when you have to take decisions about which direction do we go, a simple question, simple check with, is this fitting the purpose, yes or no, gives you an answer. In 99 of the 100 times. Just try this. The second thing is also, I believe Deutsche Bank has been back on the forefront, particularly also because our employees are proud to work for Deutsche Bank again. And that means you have to have a purpose that you're proud of. And I believe very strongly that that is important. And I recognize that a lot of people wake up in the morning, go out of their bed, and they have to have a job because you have a mortgage, or you have the education of your children, or you want to go on holidays. But that's not enough. That is not enough to motivate people to do the right thing, to be enthusiastic about their work. And therefore, the pride that the purpose brings, and I think the purpose of Deutsche is one we can be proud, and we should all be proud of, is an extremely important ingredient. Yes, we are helping our customers for the good. We're helping them to protect their assets. We're doing that in the home market, internationally. We're helping them also be successful in the future. That is something we can be proud of. And if you're proud of what you're doing, the chances that you do it well are much bigger than if you're not proud, as you can, I'm sure, agree with me.
You've just hinted to our purpose, which is to be dedicated to our clients' lasting success and financial security at home and abroad. And you've already started pointing to what that does with us, making the organization more client-centric. Can I ask you to elaborate a bit more on maybe one or two examples where you've really seen that in action, and what that does to you also in your role as a chairman of the supervisory board?
Look, I can give you a few examples. One of them that was very striking for me is that in the beginning, when I joined Deutsche Bank, I think even before joining, in getting myself acquainted, I would try to speak to as much people as possible to try to understand more about the business, what they're doing. And I will tell you, Ben, I very often hear, well, we have great products and we have done a lot of transactions. And when I asked about the customers, of course we have a customer, but that's not the way we need to think about the customer. And I think what you see now is much more thinking where let's see what the customer needs, and that will be followed up by transactions. And that is the right order. I don't think we're all totally there yet, but we are making the move. At least everybody recognizes the importance. And the second element I can also give you here to your in response to your question is, when I speak about purpose, I can feel the attention that it gets. I get a lot of attention speaking about purpose, about people understanding that we do the right thing and why we do the right thing, but also why it makes sense to do the right thing. And I can feel that in the conversation we're having. I can feel that in town hall meetings. You've been part of that, so you'll recognize that. This is a subject that brings us all together into one organization. That is so important.
I agree with you. You spoke about the role of the management board in that process. Maybe we unpack a little bit the different kind of parts of the organization. So you have, of course, senior leadership more broadly than the management board. And you have, of course, all employees, no matter what organizational division they operate in, no matter what region they are in. What you said around, for example, ask yourself whether this is in line with purpose. Do you think that applies equally to all parts of the organization? Is that something which you believe shapes culture, from the board to senior leadership, top down? How do you think about that?
Well, I think that it has to start somewhere. There has to be clear ownership. And you're the management board, you really took that ownership. And that was important. You took the time to develop a purpose that you all felt comfortable with. Because if you're not comfortable with it, it's going to be hard then to bring the purpose to the organization. I think the bank has also done a good job, really good job. And I know you've been part of that, Ben, so I'm grateful for that, in getting the purpose across in the organization. When I go to a branch or I go to see an office, I am always delighted to see the purpose. And I just hope we don't put these banners on there just because I'm coming in there. But I do see that so often that I cannot believe that is the case. And that's important. We all have to be reminded. And the one lesson I've learned, and again, one lesson I want to share with you is, you will never communicate enough. You have to over-communicate again and again and again. You will never over-communicate enough. How often have I spoken about a purpose to a group of people who said, well, that was really great. I said, it's the same talk I had 6 months ago. And that we need to understand and continue relentlessly. That is important. I think one of our objectives should be that every single employee of the organization understands the purpose, understand what it means for he or for she, and also understands why this is so important and feels that it unites them with all the other employees of Deutsche Bank around the world. That would be, I think, the ultimate objective. Now let's try to get as close as we can to that.
Now, our purpose defines why we are here. At Deutsche Bank, we've gone one step further and we've connected it with what we want to achieve, our vision, which is to be the global house bank and the first port of call for our clients, no matter where they operate. What does that mean to you and how do you see that in practice, maybe particularly in the current times with all the volatility we see outside in our operating environment?
Well, I think it's extremely important to have a purpose. That's at the top of the pyramid. Then you have a vision. And then, of course, you have also strategic objectives. Now, this vision is important, and the Global House Bank one is one that I think resonates very well. It resonates well with us and employees, with the background we have. And on top of that, it is now really the right positioning as far as I can see. But what we're seeing in the world, the insecurity, we don't know anymore with who we stand and where we stand, what tomorrow will bring, what kind of tariffs. We have a lot of risk to manage. You also see that clients will be looking at diversifying their banking relationship. And I think here, Deutsche Bank is exactly here, ready at the right time to take advantage of all those clients in many parts of the world, be it in Europe, but also outside of Europe, who will want to diversify the banking relationships with at least one bank that is headquartered in a EU country. And Germany, being the largest market, is, in my view, as such, the best position for that. So it comes at the right time, and which is good. But often good things come together. You could say it's a coincidence, but I do think that things are coming together in a very positive way for Deutsche Bank.
Thank you, Alex. Before we close, we always ask our guests to the podcast one question which is linked to our purpose. Mm-hmm. And that is, what is it that you're dedicated to in your daily life?
It's not an easy question because you are confronted with so many things that you have to do and so many things that, you get exposed to. But I would say, when you get more mature, I'm trying to avoid the word older. You really want to try to do more things that make sense. And you realize that at a certain point in time is going to be running out. And you should not be doing things that make no sense. That to me is what I try to think about. I try to also act accordingly. Let's make sure that what we do makes sense and that we also do that for ourselves, but we do that for others. Because if we don't do it also for others, it will not make sense for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's great to have you on the podcast. Maybe just before we close, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Ben, thank you for having me here. As you know, for me, a purpose is extremely important. And I'm also very pleased to see how the purpose is really starting to live within Deutsche Bank. And if you ask me if there's one more thing, I would perhaps, draw the attention to the fact that nowadays, in today's environment, in the labor market in which we work, we need to be an organization that is seen as doing the right things. This is not only to attract new talent and young talent, but also older talent, but also to maintain talent. I'm very much convinced that ultimately people will want to work for an organization that they feel is doing the right thing. And I think we are doing the right thing.
Thank you very much, Alex, for joining us today and for this conversation on purpose. If you would like to learn more about Deutsche Bank's own story with purpose, just head down to the show notes where we'll add a link or two to our website. With that, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you heard, please do subscribe or leave us a comment, and we will be back again next month. In the meantime, take care and see you all soon. Bye-bye.